Well, speaking, you mentioned real-world application, and I'm thinking about demonstrating value. And I wonder how librarians, and this would be on a local level in your individual library, how the librarian can really show return on investment and value, the value of the library, to the administration, and really point out to them, it's really worth contributing X number of dollars to library services in the library.
Right. That's the million-dollar question. Currently, we're very fortunate in that our interim chancellor at the campus is someone who has a library degree. She's a librarian, and so it's not every person's going to be that fortunate in that their administrator is going to be someone who understands the work that you do and the goals that you have. But it certainly is helping right now for us because the library building has never been renovated, and the building was built in '72. So now one of my goals since I got there was to advocate for renovation for that building, and we're certainly making a lot of progress in identifying how that space could be better used, what opportunities are there for funding that renovation, and the impact that we know that it's going to have. It's fortunate in that there have been renovations at other locations, and so we have numbers in terms of the number of people who are coming in, the ways in which faculty are changing their assignments to take advantage of the resources that are available. And so I'm really, that's where, advocating with faculty is coming into play, because we're getting new faculty who are coming in who really want to implement different type of assignments and have their students try some different type of coursework. There's certainly more focus on group work, for example. And so by starting to build those relationships with those faculty and talk to them and say, well, we could do this, so we could incorporate a one-button studio so that students could do presentations and learn how to sort of hone those skills, and we could have that in the library as they do in other locations. That really is really helped with interest, and so administrators see that there is application not just beyond students having a pretty space to be in, but it is going to have an impact on the coursework, and which hopefully then also has an effect on accreditation. Where we are would be Middle States accreditation, but also there's a component in that we have we have advisory boards, and so those advisory boards are people in the community who know what they're looking for in those graduates and what it's going to allow them to be successful. And they're saying, our students need to come out with certain types of skills. Having experienced these things, we don't have time to ramp them up, but it would be great if they were coming out knowing how to do these things. And we can talk about, the library is a great space, a great place. Great opportunity to get students to develop those skills so that they're ready to go right into the workforce. And our advisory board members are able to hire them and then talk about how great it is to hire Penn State students, because they're coming out with these skills, and then that gets picked up in the press, and then there's that return on investment, and then suddenly it seems incredibly affordable to really commit funds to the library and supporting some of its development, because then we have these alumni who are doing amazing things and giving back to the institution.
And a lot of things you're talking about are a little bit above and beyond the traditional notions of what libraries do.
Right.
And the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, I know back in 2011 you were named a mover and shaker.
Yes.
And at that time you were lauded as a master of making connections.
Yes.
And I was wondering, what do you think are the most essential connections for the library to make on campus?
The most essential. There's, I think the library should have a connection to pretty much every unit on campus, whether it's, office and physical plan and facilities in terms of making sure that the building, is well maintained, and, the temperatures that students want it to be at, and the collections are protected, academic affairs, of course, makes a lot of sense because of the kinds of things we're doing to develop the collections in support of, course delivery. library instruction, our reference services, both there in the building, also virtual. Student affairs, I think, is one that I think is growing. I think that there is even more opportunity, because I think it's, as I said, it's not just sort of being invited to the, new student orientation or the student fairs. There are different things that we can do at those events, but I think that making stronger connections with our student affairs staff, because I think we see students a lot more than some faculty do, academic advisors do, some of the people who are in student housing. I think we see students more, and we're able to build relationships with students in a slightly different way, because we're not the ones we're not giving them a grade, although in some cases there are courses where we are, but for the most part we're not giving them a grade. We're not necessarily policing them in terms of quiet hours in the dorm or that sort of thing. So students come to us with that combination of social but also educational, and so we're able to build relationships with them and get a sense and understand, particularly when there are challenges that students are faced with, that they'll articulate it to us. They'll come in and they'll say, oh, I need to register for classes, so I'm using a computer in the library to do that. But then you start to have these conversations and you discover that these students who are full-time are taking full course load. They're working maybe 30 or more hours a week, and they're helping to take care of a younger sibling or something like that. And we understand why, okay, this is why students are taking these courses, but they don't recognize that they're not matriculating as they need to be. They're not going to talk to their advisor because they don't really know who that person is, and maybe they feel like they're not comfortable, and so they talk to us. And so we in the library, I think, have to really work to have an understanding of the entire campus and what's going on. Even with police services or parking services, why students are avoiding coming to campus, or they're hiding out because they're not paying parking tickets or what have you, and getting them to sort of really understand. I mean, we almost get to be mentors to students, and not just for mentored course instruction, but for really mentor in terms of understanding the next 4 or 5 years on campus, and and so that they can do it effectively, and being able to tell a student to go specifically talk to a particular person in a particular department, that it's a reference. For me, it's a reference librarian sort of thing, instead of saying, oh, you need to go over to academic affairs. But if I can say, oh, you should go talk to Donna in academic affairs, then they might actually do it. So it's a lot of juggling, it's a lot of hats, as you mentioned, but I think it's really important, because just like every other unit on that campus, we want our students to be successful. We want them to graduate in timely fashion with a degree, in a major that they can see themselves in. And
I think that you mentioned the interaction, librarian interaction with students is an undervalued resource, and I don't think librarians promote it enough, and I'm not sure that administrators recognize that that's a real resource.
Yeah, I think we need more. I think in our professional literature, we need more administrators, librarians who recognize and appreciate that strength, and we need more also administrators outside of the library to recognize that we bring a lot of expertise to our role in the library. And this isn't just something that your outreach librarian or your instruction librarian should do. Librarians and other parts of the library, special collections, technical services, and acquisitions and cataloging also should be, sharing their expertise as well with our students, and really being, an ambassador for the library and for the college or university.
And it sounds like you're actively doing this at Penn State Greater Allegheny.
It's certainly my goal. Yes. It's something that I enjoy doing, and I really I see a need for. And I also think that for me in particular, our students, particular students of color, don't see a lot of people of color in administrative roles, or maybe not a lot of faculty, and so I've recognized that it's also a real opportunity to connect with students who maybe don't see themselves reflected in other parts of the campus. And so I have a real obligation to support those students, as well as other students who feel that they are in some way a little bit different from everyone else. So it's
that role model.
Yes, yeah, that was one of those things that I had no idea coming into this profession that I would ever be in that position. But now I've recognized it. I take it very seriously, and it's a real privilege.
So that leads to my next question, which is one of the key themes of your ALA presidency was fostering diversity.
Yes.
So how do you think, any one particular library can help do that, foster diversity on its campus?
I think there are a number of ways to do it. I mean, we think about our collections, for example, and hopefully we're building diverse collections that support the disciplines, but also some other areas. And so I think making people aware of how diverse and rich our collections are is certainly one piece of that. Having librarians and staff, or even the whole library, designated as a safe space, particularly for students who, in terms of sexual orientation or gender identity, know that they can come in and be safe in that space, but also talk to people who can connect them with the network if they need support, is also really important. I think that in terms of the campus administration as well, that make sure that those dialogues take place, and you're going to, one of the questions this morning, someone said, I'm not going to say that I don't support diversity, and certainly people are not going to say that I'm not in support
I don't believe in that.
of diversity. I don't have time for that. And so I think that there are opportunities to really garner support for diversity at that broader level on campus. I think a lot of institutions, either on their homepage or someplace pretty high up, are going to say that they support diversity, or diversity is an important, part of the institution, mission, so on and so forth. So we need to really tap into that and say, okay, well, what are the opportunities with regards to diversity? How can the library support that? I've worked at a couple institutions where they've said that. At Penn State, we do have a framework to foster diversity that's university-wide. And then the library also develops its framework and how it can support it. And we do that through the collections. You do that through the services. Even we think about the space, bringing in speakers. When you have sort of a diverse speaker series, why shouldn't the library be the place that that highlights that? I think it would be interesting. One of the things that we do on our campuses is we have students who do study abroad. And, when those students come back, libraries can provide sort of a forum or speaker series or something where the students can share those experiences in which they've been enriched, where they probably were confronted with and had to deal with diversity in a way that maybe they didn't anticipate it. And I think sharing those experiences so that students do want to do programs or projects that take them outside of the country and around the world. I think that we could play a real role in sort of fostering that. I worked at campuses within the Penn State system. Their students hadn't been outside of the county that the campus was in.
Yeah.
So for them to get on an airplane and go out of state, let alone out of the country, has been huge. And we have a lot of students for whom that experience of just going, from north to south or east to west is tremendous. And I think that we can do some things to support it.